The midday sun spilled across the courtyard of the private airport, cutting sharp shadows across the polished floor. A gleaming white jet stood proudly in its hangar, its surface reflecting the light like a mirror. Around it, a handful of executives and staff gathered, their shoes clicking smartly against the concrete. The air smelled of jet fuel and fresh polish, a picture of wealth and precision. Then, into this carefully staged world stepped a man who looked as though he belonged somewhere else entirely. He was thin, his skin darkened by decades under the sun. His cheeks were hollow yet strong, his hands rough and scarred from years of work. His shirt was tattered, his trousers frayed, his straw hat bent out of shape. A worn leather bag hung from his shoulder. As he walked forward, heads turned. Smirks curled. Whispered laughter spread. To them, he looked like a farmer who had wandered into the wrong world, a world of billion-dollar jets and men in silk ties. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in never judging a person by appearances, please like this video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps spread meaningful stories like this one. The farmer's name was Raghav Sharma. For 70 years, his life had been shaped by toil, not luxury. At dawn he rose, day after day, working the soil with bare hands, enduring harsh summers and unforgiving monsoons. Where others wore crisp shirts and shining shoes, Raghav wore patched clothes, old sandals, and the same straw hat for nearly 2 decades. To strangers, he was nothing but an aging farmer clinging to survival. But beneath the dirt and dust lay another truth. For decades, Raghav had quietly purchased lands that others abandoned. Patiently, he revived them, turning barren soil into fertile fields. His farms stretched across valleys and hills, feeding not only his country but markets abroad. Carefully chosen investments multiplied his wealth until it surpassed that of the very men smirking at him now. And yet, he never changed. He never cared for golden watches or expensive suit. His joy was in the earth, in the rustle of crops, in the young farmers he trained to succeed. As he walked toward the jet, one executive leaned to another and whispered loudly, "What's he doing here? Must have lost his way from the fields." Chuckles followed. Raghav lowered his eyes. Not from shame, from patience. He had heard such words before. At banks, clerks mocked his torn clothes. In markets, traders sneered at his appearance. He was invisible unless he had money to offer. But today the irony was sharp, because the very jet they prepared belonged to him. The laughter grew when a tall man in a navy suit stepped forward. His name was Adifir Malhotra, a manager who prided himself on connections. He jabbed a finger at Raghav's chest. "Old man, this is a private facility. You don't belong here." Staff and attendants laughed behind him. To them, Raghav was entertainment. But Raghav only lifted his gaze. His wrinkled face was calm, his eyes deep with storms these men could never imagine. He did not argue. He did not shout. He simply stood in silence, and that silence unsettled them more than anger ever could. And then, footsteps echoed from the far side of the hangar. The airport director entered with 2 assistants, his voice carrying authority. "Mr. Sharma," he said warmly, "your jet is ready. The pilots are waiting. Shall we arrange refreshments before your flight?" The hangar froze. Laughter died instantly. Gasps spread. The manager's face drained of color as he realized the man he mocked was not a beggar but the owner of the jet itself. Staff who had laughed a moment before now stood in awe, their smiles gone. Raghav nodded politely and walked past them. He did not gloat. He did not return their insult. He had endured too much in life to waste energy proving himself to men who measured worth by fabric and shine. He climbed the stairs into the jet, his steps steady, his head high. Inside, as the engines hummed to life, he sat by the window, gazing at the runway. His mind drifted back to earlier days. He remembered his wife stitching clothes late into the night. His children walking barefoot to school because shoes were too costly. He remembered selling his first harvest for so little that he nearly gave up. He remembered neighbors mocking him for buying barren land, traders dismissing him as a nobody. He remembered the pain, but also the grit that carried him through. The jet lifted gracefully into the sky, carrying with it not just a man, but a lifetime of perseverance. Below, the same people who mocked him stood in silence, their pride broken by the lesson before their eyes. Never judge a soul by the clothes they wear. True wealth is not measured in fabric or gold. Above the clouds, Rugov closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude. Not for riches, not for power, not even for fleets of aircraft, but for the strength to remain the same humble farmer he had always been. Even as one of the wealthiest men in the region, he still walked his fields at dawn. He still gave food to the hungry. He still built schools for children who had no hope. That was his real fortune, the wealth of kindness, humility, and giving. And so, the story of Rugov Sharma is not about contracts signed in glass towers or fortunes stored in bank. It is about the richness of spirit. About a man who rose above mockery without bitterness, who reminded the world that appearances deceive, but character reveals. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every small act of support helps us bring more inspiring stories of humanity to light.